Hello everyone and welcome back to the garage. I'm very excited today because I've got this very nice R1150GS in here to do a full service on. And this is one of my favorite bikes. In fact, when I bought the Triumph, I was looking at a few 1150GSs and even two GS Adventures, which were quite lovely, but a bit more expensive. So I'm going to be doing a full service on this bike. The owner has bought it a few weeks ago. And it has some service history, but for the last 3 years nothing has been recorded. Not saying nothing has been done, it just hasn't been recorded. Maybe it hasn't been done. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. Full service and just give it a check over, see if there's anything else that needs doing. So I'm starting here at the back wheel, just see if it spins freely, and it does. Bearing seems to be fine, brakes are good, or not binding. I'm just going to try to wiggle it. And don't feel anything. These have the paralever system, so they can develop some play, and you can adjust that. There's a bearing preload adjustment, but this feels pretty tight. We're going to take that off anyway. We're going to take the final drive off, not the whole swing arm. They both have the same sort of adjustment. But yeah, this feels good. Also going to start checking the spokes. There's quite a bit of corrosion, but nothing major. Maybe a bit of treatment with ACF 50 or something similar would do the job of protecting it or trying to keep it as it is, not getting any worse. Try the spokes on the other side, and nothing seems to be loose. That's good. You're supposed to check these if they're torqued. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm going to take the wheel off later. And yeah, it's all good on this side. We can move over to the next one. Before I do that, I'm also going to inspect the tire for any damage. One thing I noticed is this rear hugger is loose. The bolts are still there, but they're a bit loose. I'm going to tighten that up. So I'm just going to spin the tire around, see if I notice any damage. So I'm over at the final drive side, and it all looks good so far. Check the brake pads, and they still have some meat left. Bolts again a bit corroded. Brake disc looks fine, no cracks or anything. Also gonna measure the thickness. This seems to be like 4.58, 4.59. Measured this before actually, and yeah, that's the measurement I got. So it's getting close to the minimum thickness, but we're not there yet, so still gonna use it. This is the non-ABS model, so we have a new brake line from the master cylinder to the caliper, and so it looks like a fairly new one. It's a braided brake line, so that's all good. No leaks spotted, everything's good. Brake works fine, releases nicely, so that's good. Final drive looks alright. Drain plug and fill plug look reusable, but the washer on this fill plug looks a bit dodgy, so I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm gonna replace that anyway. Paralever arm looks like it's been corroded and repainted, but it's all in good condition. Paint on it is fine. So yeah, pretty much happy with that. Funny looking dust cap. And I also pulled off the boot here and see if there's any oil inside. And luckily there isn't, so happy with that. What happens is either the seal on the input shaft in the final drive tends to leak, or the output seal in the gearbox. And the trouble is, these have the same type of fluid, the same oil, same color. So it's often hard to tell which one is leaking, because if the final drive is leaking, the color looks the same, and it also tends to go up the swing arm, and it looks like it's coming down from there. Because when the drive shaft is spinning, it sort of moves the fluid around. And also looking at this doesn't have a hole for the ABS sensor, so this never had an ABS, which is a good thing in my opinion on these bikes. Has a broken clip here for the brake pipe hanger, but it's quite short, it might not matter. Maybe do something about that. So I've been talking for a while now, so let's get on and check something else. So the engine looks fairly clean, it's all pretty good. There are a few corrosion on some of the items, but it's not terrible for this year, it's pretty good. It's the single spark model. And one thing I notice is the oil seems to be quite low. It's barely touching the bottom of the sight glass. And also another thing is that I don't know if the camera picks it up, but there's not a massive, but there's an oil seepage on that mating surface there. It seems to be coming from higher up, and it just has this lower section all covered in oil, but I'm guessing it's all coming from here somewhere. And yeah, apart from that, it's pretty good. I don't think we're going to do anything about the oil leak in this video. Maybe some other time, just clean it up a bit. And also looking at the side glass here, it seems a bit corroded, and it's the rubber is sort of being pushed away by the corroded metal behind it. So that might need replacing at some point, but right now it's fine, it's not leaking, so probably best to leave it alone. So yeah, nothing else to report here. I think we're ready to move on to the front end. So I'm here at the front wheel now, and it all looks fairly good, apart from a bit of corrosion. The tone ring and ABS sensor is missing again, so it's a non-ABS model. First thing you notice is the tire is quite a bit cracked. Don't know if you can see that. It's got some cracking on the side and even in between here. So yeah, this bike will get a new front tire. Apart from that, is pretty good. I checked the disc thickness and it's quite good. It's close to 5mm. Pads are still in decent condition. Wheel spins freely. I can't feel any play up or down, back and forth, or any direction. I can't really feel any play, so that's a bonus. Nothing seems to be wrong in the front. It's all good, except the tire and a perish boot on top. I'll just move the camera. So looking from the front end now, it all looks fairly decent. Some corrosion on the shock and various bits, but it's not terrible yet. It's still usable. Some bits are worse than others. So it's quite hard to get a good angle on this, but then if you see right in there, this boot for the pivot joint is split. The joint itself still feels tight, so that's good. I don't think it needs replacing. It's just this rubber boot that we should replace now and probably save the ball joint in the long run. Apart from that, it all looks fairly good. Nothing major to complain about. So while I was checking things, I also decided to check the battery health. And looking in there, it looks like a fairly new battery. It's quite clean, so no surprising it came back with 100% battery health and 91% battery charge, which is alright. So yeah, this is supposed to be a 20 amp hour battery, I think, and 100 cca. So yeah, 100%, that's good. So I think I'm ready to get all the parts for it now. It's a single spark model, so only need two spark plugs, one for each cylinder, about 4 liters of oil. Oil filter. This bike, as I said, takes 80W90, I think it is. Same oil in the gearbox as the final drive. Newer models have a different oil in the final drive. It takes about 800 milliliters in the gearbox and 230 in the final drive. Newer models have a bit less in the final drive, but on this one is 230, I think it is. So annoyingly, you need 2 liters for that. You can't get away with 1, but I've got some spare here. So I'm only going to get 1 liter for this bike and use some of my oil. This bike, again, newer models have mineral oil in the clutch system. This clutch has .4, so I use the same thing as the brakes systems. No ABS, so no funny bleeding stuff, which is good because this had the integral ABS system, which you had to bleed the ABS to the wheel and then the master cylinder to the ABS. It's a bit of a faff, and it's quite annoying. But yeah, apart from that, this is all good. So I think we're done with everything. Ready to go for a quick ride to warm the bike up and drain the fluids. And it's quite important you ride the bike. You don't just start it and let it idle to warm up, because you also want the gearbox to be running and getting warm, and the final drive as well. You don't want to just drain the oil, you want to run it, have it warm, and then drain it. There's only one thing left that I want to check, and that is the alternator belt. And as I said, this bike is a bit lacking in maintenance history, so we'll assume that hasn't been done. That needs to be replaced every 30,000 miles, I think it is, according to the service history. I don't remember, I'll post it on the screen if I'm wrong. So yeah, we're gonna assume it hasn't been done, and we're gonna get a new belt for it and replace it. You're supposed to check the tension of the belt every service. We're gonna just replace it and tension it properly. But the trouble is, there are 2 belt lengths. These bikes came with the Denso alternator, which had a 595mm long belt, if I remember correctly. And they also came with the Bosch alternator, which was 611mm. So yeah, you have to know which belt you need, and it may be tricky to tell, but let's go and have a look. So the alternator is up in there. It's actually really hard to get any sort of good angle on it so you can see it, so apologies for that. We're going to be able to have a closer look at it once the fuel tank is off. But maybe you're in the same situation, you don't want to take the fuel tank off just to know which belt you need. You're going to do that after you have all the parts. So yeah, you can see the alternator right there. I'm trying to point at it. That's the back head. There's the plastic cover behind that pipe. And I'm not sure, I don't think you're able to see it, but I'm gonna have to take my word. There's almost like a barcode on the cover and a BMW logo. So which one is it? Is it a Denso or a Bosch? Well, if you take a little inspection mirror and put it right in there behind the plastic cover, so trying to see the back of the alternator, you can see pretty clearly written on the back if you shine some light in there. So yeah, you can see, probably can't see, but you're gonna have to take my word for it. It says Bosch on the back of that cover. So there we go, we know which belt we need now. So let's get some parts ordered, take it for a quick ride, and we can drain the oil. So I just got back from a ride. I wanted to see what the bike feels like and also warm the engine up for its oil change. And it rides lovely, brakes fine. It's a really nice bike. There are two complaints though I have for it. There's this tiny squeak when you rev it, and I'm guessing that's the alternator belt, which has probably not been adjusted in a while. Don't see what else it would be, sounds like it. So we're gonna address that a bit later. And also the bike is quite unpleasant to ride. It didn't handle very well. The front end feels quite unstable and seems to have a mind of its own. So my first thought is tire pressure. Let's see what it's like. Should be around 2.2 to 2.5 bar. And according to this, it's just around 1.2 bar. Yeah, about 1.2 bar. So that's about half of what it should be, and it feels, you can definitely tell. But no matter, as I mentioned before, this bike will get a new front tire, so that'll be sorted. That's the end of this video, but there's more on this bike coming up. When I worked on the bike, I filmed everything with the intention of making a long video. But now, as I'm editing, it makes more sense to actually split this in a few videos. So yeah, this is the end of the first video. Please subscribe if you want to see more on this bike or anything else motorcycle related. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you again next time.